Recently, the CBN stepped up, says 43 items that before now were restricted, they can now access FX at the window of the Apex Bank. Some say this clearly means that those queues we used to have will get longer because they won't have to go to the other market. They have to come into the CBN's official window to access FX. What does that mean to the entire business environment?
Not much. Not much. It is just a perception that those 43 items will increase the pressure on central bank. To the extent that they will want to have access, they will apply. But in terms of what they actually get, it will not be very far from what is happening now. All the other sectors of the economy that had access will all have to continue to apply, and they rarely get up to 20% of whatever they apply for. Sometimes they get 10% of what they apply for. That is why you have, for example, all the airlines had their ticket sales piling up because each time they apply, they get a very small amount of what they apply for. So it just that the queue will get a bit longer in the sense that the 43 entities, sectors will join the queue. But in terms of overall impact on the market, we must remember that these 43 sectors have been operating for the past 6 or 7 years, where they were excluded from the CPN. They didn't leave the country. They didn't hold their businesses and leave the country. They have been operating regularly like everyone else and getting their currency from the private market, and they will continue to do so. Almost 90% of what they need will still come from the private market. They probably get about 10 to 15% from the CBN now that they are joining the queue. So you will not see a significant impact from that fact of being during remote. The CBN is just accepting the reality that it was a policy that was unnecessary in the first place. Because when you allow 43 sectors in the economy, operators in the economy to remain operating in the economy, and you just say, well, you can't come to the CBN, they are not going to disappear from the Nigerian economy. They did not disappear. They were here and they were as active as ever. So I think the fact that the CBN has taken that back means that that matter has been settled the way the petroleum subsidy and the conversion, the convergence of foreign currencies have been settled. Once we remove all these disruptions in the economic landscape, and we have a clear field to implement policy, it's easier for policy formulation and implementation, rather than having exceptions and rules and waivers for some people in the sector, and then you cannot have a coherent policy approach to dealing with issues like foreign currency. Now there are no constraints. Whatever foreign currency strategy that the central bank is going to design and implement, now we apply to the entire economy. It will not have to have a side policy for some people who are in 43, another side policy for some people who are entitled to a special exchange rate, and all manner of exceptions. If you take the global, complete helicopter view of the economy and decide those policies that work or that can work and react to the response to those policies and adjust them accordingly without worrying about those people who are given special privileges or denied access into the market.
Now, many have commended the Taiwo Oyedele-led presidential committee, of course, on tax and fiscal policy reforms. And there was a quick win report submitted to the president sometime last week. I don't know if you've seen that document, but I'm sure you've heard some things about the content of that document. But for me, what do you think stands out in all of these policy recommendations? Tax breaks for private sector, looking at a way to use technology for taxation or for tax collection, making it more seamless than it is. What do you make of some of these recommendations, and how impactful would they be on the entire business community?
Well, the essential thrust of the committee work is to simplify tax collection. When you have about 50 or 80 different types of taxes or more, depending on what you count as tax or what you don't count as tax, all kinds of levies that are actually taxes. And you now try to run a fiscal regime where you are pursuing 50 or 60 or 70 different types of taxes. You certainly cannot make a good job of it. And as the committee pointed out, the countries we try to benchmark against, like South Africa, they have only 10 taxes, 10 items of taxes, and they are collecting several multiples of what we are collecting. And we are, rather than reducing, we have been multiplying the number of taxes we have. Almost every new legislation by the government introduces a special levy for this industry, for that industry, that industry. So the inland revenue is just running around trying to even cope with the number of taxes to collect. So what this committee is essentially saying is, let's reduce the number of taxes. What's important is total tax you collect, not the number of taxes you have in your system. And let's also ensure that a lot of the taxes that remain can be easily automated. And so it's easier using technology to pay those taxes. It's easier to track. And then government can focus on the efficiency of the tax system rather than trying to struggle to remember how many taxes government is pursuing and how to collect them and how many agencies are dealing with taxes. So once a few agencies are mandated to do tax collection, other regulatory agencies should just face regulation. We shouldn't turn almost every regulatory agency in Nigeria into another tax collecting agency. That's another thrust of the reforms that the committee is trying to address. That regulatory agencies should face the job of regulation. But revenue collection for the country should be streamlined into a small number of organizations that face the revenue collection and make them more efficient, give them the power to do it, and build the technology that enables everyone to be captured. So long as you live in this country, for example, and you have your NIN, your national identity number, it should be easy for you to come into the tax net. You don't really need too many ways of finding taxpayers. Just one identity is enough, and once you are in the tax net, it's up to the government to implement efficient collection of a small number of taxes and distribute that income to everybody else. So you don't need to have one tax for insurance companies, one tax for textile companies, one tax for technology companies, one tax for, education. So many taxes that we have in our system that, one tax for police, one tax for something else. That all this multiplicity of taxes and levies does not mean we actually collect more tax. It does that we overburden the tax collection system with too many taxes.